Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from SuiteRecording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. You know, people, if you have a video cast, a podcast, an audiobook, hell, even if you need a studio built, SuiteRecording is the place for you. Joe Gangemi, not only is he a great guy, but he knows his stuff, he's honest, and he's easy to work with. So reach out to them. Go to their website, SuiteRecording, SUITE recording.com, or email him at hello@suiterecording.com. Anyway, we have another great show this week. I'm always flattered that these people come on my show because I always get these shakers and movers in the business world, and they reach out to them and they go, yeah, we'll do your show. And today's no different. We have people I've met from all different places. Our first guest, I met her at a Jersey Man event, and it's from Alloy Silverstein. It's Angela Venti. How you doing, Angela?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
And next, the guy who actually had a beer with last night. He was at Cocktails with Cooper. He's from Modern Classical Chefs. We have Dan Ninerell. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Steve.
And finally, a guy I graduated Cherry Hill East with in 1982, baby. Fellow Cougars. Yes, we're getting old. From On the Mark Advisors, it's Mark Stile. How you doing, Mark?
Great. Honored to be here, Steve. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, tell us what you do, a little about yourself, and we'll start with you, Angela. Tell us about what you do at Alloy Silverstein and about the company.
So it's an amazing company. I started 5 years ago, just after tax season. I always tell people, because they say, will you be doing my taxes? And I'm like, you definitely don't want that. I'm like Julie on the Love Boat. I onboard everybody, introduce them to the captain, show them around, and make the experience a very positive one. And very much like you, Steve, as long as I've known you, connecting people, I try to take care of all those extra things that people might need. They need some banking connections. They need insurance connections. So I kind of coordinate the experience for clients. And so it's a great role to have.
Okay. And Dan, tell us about your chefhood.
Yeah. My company is Modern Classical Chefs, and my tagline is we bring amazing restaurant experiences to your home. So, everything over time, especially since COVID, everything just sped up with engagement and bringing things into the home. Amazon comes to your home, Grubhub, I mean, everything delivers. Why not bring the restaurant experience to your home? So during COVID, I was doing the corporate thing, and when am I going to retire? 65, 67? Oh, gee, I don't know. I don't want to do that. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm forming a company. I want to follow my passion. I love to cook, and I formed my company, and it's starting to take off, and it's been a wonderful experience.
How about you, Mark?
Well, I'm a business therapist. I help us entrepreneurs and small business owners get unstuck and bridge the gap between what they're envisioning their business to be versus the reality on the ground today. I do that through a series of strategic advising, business coaching, and stress management, all integrated holistically into the practice that I've named business therapy. The result usually being that the clients achieve sustainable breakthrough performance in their business.
Okay, now I'm going to start off with this question because, Dan, you touched on it a little bit, but we've all been in the business world for a while. And like Angela, you said you came to your business 5 years ago. I know, Mark, everyone's always reinventing themselves. It's something that we do. I think it's just, we all grew up, a lot of us, with parents who probably worked their whole life at a job. And we went, wow, what do you get at the end? Like my mom took early retirement from Campbell Soup. And it's like, what did you get? A watch? You didn't get an experience. How did you end up at your position you are at now? And we're going to start with you, Angela, because you said it was 5 years. What was your path to Alloy Silverstein? Because, you're very successful, but I want to know how you got to there.
So Ren Sigley's, the managing partner, had reached out to me. I was in banking and did business development for banking. So he had an idea of what if we brought in somebody to do business development for accounting. And I thought, I don't know how you do that. How do you sell? Everybody's got a guy, right? So how do you become that person? So he said, let's try it. And I really took it thinking, well, it's going to go one way or the other. And I'm happy to report 5 years later, it was a good fit. It was a good match. The confidentiality and the stresses of banking and accounting, they're kind of connected. So it's relationship selling, like everyone on this panel, I would say probably would feel the same way. The relationships you make then grow from there. And that's how you are able to help people. But it's hard for people to have those discussions. I'm sure Mark would say the same. People will share a lot of other things besides how much they owe and, things that keep them up at night. It's not always easy to get those things. So Ren had the idea and he sat on it for a little while, but we tried it and here we are 5 years later. And I think we would both say that it was a great ad for me. Longevity was something I did want. I didn't want to keep moving around. So I found that I found a home. So it worked out. It was a two-win situation for sure.
How about you, Mark? 'Cause I know you've had quite a path.
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I was 30 years in the corporate and startup worlds, slaying dragons in various leadership positions in various industries, and also in a multitude of different functional areas. So I was able to speak the language of all the different departments and functions, anywhere from sales, marketing, finance, legal, operations, you name it. And after 30 years there, had done what I needed to do, was made the money, managed the people, had the power. I said, is there more to it in life than this? And I had the opportunity to exit out of that world, hang up my own shingle, and haven't not looked back since. That was about close to 5 years ago. And so now I've been able to harness all of that knowledge, wisdom, perspective that I had in that world of the corporate world and startup world. And by the way, 2 startups I helped take to market leading positions. So I had the creds to do this on my own and help the small business owners see the forest through the trees, understand what their strategy is, and how to have their business play to their own strengths, which surprisingly, maybe you might not realize, many business owners don't play to their own strengths. And that causes stress, that causes unproductivity and less profits. So I get them aligned. Sometimes people call me the business chiropractor because I'm sometimes have to realign the business to match the owner's strengths, and then get them to where they're trying to go. Serving as a strategic advisor, business coach, sometimes managing their stress because, as we might all know, the solopreneurs and the small business owners. The personal comes into the business. Everything's intersecting all the time. You got to be able to compartmentalize that out, and being able to get them to achieve their goals, whatever their goals might be. Could be profits, could be wealth, could be other things, legacy, giving back, balance, a lot of different things. So everybody's different, and I have I customize my approach to each individual business owner. I know that was a lot to swallow, so.
Oh no, it's good. I always love when someone from Cherry Hill says cred. Like, we got street cred. We're from Cherry Hill. Like, yeah, we put dimes in our loafers, not pennies, because we got street cred. But Dan, now I know we've talked about this. Your track to the chefhood, because you're going completely, like, Mark stayed in the business. Angela had known banking and had contacts. You've gone from, completely different. That's like going from an accountant to being a juggler. There's nothing. Tell us about your route to being a chef.
You said 2 things that resonated with me. In the beginning, you were talking about our parents, right? Like what our parents did. And then you talked about reinventing yourself. And that kind of ties right in with your question. So, my parents, working class, we came from the Ohio Valley. Dad moved the family over from West Virginia to Willingboro, New Jersey, where I grew up. He was a vice principal at Maple Shade High School until he retired. And, he retired with the full thing, the benefits, all this, the whole thing. And I said, Dad, it's not that way anymore. I said, I feel like a free agent athlete, where I'm going from contract to contract. And hopefully at the end of this, I'll cobble something together, for retirement. And I just never liked that, So COVID came, like I said in my intro, and I'm sitting there. We were working at home for like 2.5 years, right? I already started my business, and I'm thinking, how am I going to do this business while I'm working full time? And I have a strong business background. I've been in logistics and supply chain before people knew what that was. I started out 18 years old, loading and unloading trucks on the docks in South Philadelphia. And just 10 years in, okay, I guess this is my career. And it just wasn't fulfilling. So, again, going back to the COVID thing, I'm sitting there and I've been cooking for like 30 years. I do all the cooking in my home. I do all the cooking for the events, and something I loved. I watch all the shows. I study all the techniques. So, I found a great business coach that helped turn, home cooks and disgruntled kitchen cooks into business owners, running a personal chef business. And I'm telling you, it was the greatest thing I did. So I totally reinvented myself. And now I'm on this path and this journey. I'm meeting like amazing people, creating amazing experiences, making people happy. And I love it. Now it's like, how long can I work till, Like before I was saying, am I going to retire 65, 67? Hey, 80, 85, I want to keep active, and keep going. So that's been my journey, and it's been a really great one. I'm so happy.
That's good.
Dan,
Now
I'd love to connect with you because I might need your services. That sounds awesome.
All right, reach out after the show.
well, I get 10%. Anyway, I got a question for you, all of you, because we all go through this. I stress a lot, and I actually found out not to stress as much. I take these gummies, not marijuana gummies, but it's called ashwagandha, and it's brought my stress level down. But what do you struggle with in your daily or weekly business life? Like, what's something that drives you? You worry, like some people worry about customers. Some people worry about, are they going to make their customers happy? What do you struggle with? There's got to be, everyone struggles with something. What's one of the things where you may wake up in the middle of the night and be like, holy crap, I didn't do this. Mark, we'll start with you because you've been on your own, and I want to know what's some struggles you deal with?
Well, can I pass? No, I'm just kidding. I think the struggle, it's hard to think about that because I feel like I've got everything in place the way it should be, right? So for the most part, there's really not a struggle. I guess if I had to pick something, it might be the prioritization of my time, because no matter how well you prioritize your time and organize it, there's always the thing in the back of your head going, well, maybe I should have done that instead of that. Maybe it would have worked out better if I did this. I spent all this time with, doing this one thing. It didn't work out. Had I done this, so it's a little bit of second guessing, but in the overall scheme of things, first world problems, it's not a huge deal for me. Now, had you asked me that 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I was in the corporate and startup worlds, I would give you a slew of stuff that I worry about, right? And that's part of what this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because the stress level has gone way down. There were so many things to worry about, so many other people I had to serve. And now I'm serving my clients, myself, my family, my close friends. And it's the stress level has gone way down. The worry has gone down.
Okay. How about you, Angela?
So interesting. My answer would be a sign of the times. I don't have stresses and again, I don't speak for business owners because I know before I even show up for work, my boss has already had 18 different problems to deal with, and I'm just walking in like, hey, good morning. So I would say that for my clients, I feel the last few years with things that you couldn't control, that's what I fear more than anything. What will be the next thing that we're doing PPP emergency loans for and working 12 hours a day to try to keep businesses alive? So not knowing what's next is probably what I worry about the most, because we saw clients who didn't make it, who were reaching out from all over the country because they didn't know how they were going to keep the lights on one more day. And being a lot of people owning their own business. Some of the programs they didn't qualify for because you know, it's how many employees you had. So many people are actually working in their business and on their business that all of a sudden, how do you do business when you can't see anyone unless you're Peloton or some of these people who had these huge influxes of business because that's what took off. The regular guy and woman, that the stresses were a lot different. So I guess I worry about what's next, and I'm always trying to see what's coming down the pike. So if there was anything we could tell a business owner to prepare for, or what emergency funds look like nowadays and cash flow, what it looks like nowadays is different than if you asked me that in early 2020 or 2019, we're having different answers today than we did back then. Having people be on the cloud, all the things that came out of what we just went through and hopefully survived. I guess that's what I worry about next is what's that thing?
Okay. How about you, Dan? What are you worrying about? Because you're new into this business and we've talked and it's scary. You know, you're on your own.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that topic alone on that question. But you know, I'm a solopreneur that wants to scale to CEO. Okay. So the things that worry me, much to Mark's comment, was that, you know, the time management, because I have so many things going on and I feel often that, you know, I'm doing so many tasks, but I'm not doing them well enough because I'm just spread so thin. So that's why, like, the number one thing on my brain is, like, my stated goal is I don't want to cook in 3 years. I want to run a company and send out my teams to, you know, to do all the wonderful events that we have on the books. And then that way, when I can step back and run a company, I can be more focused and be more effective. So between doing everything, you know, myself, you know, trying to be the face of the company, and now to Angela's point, you know, the cash flow, right? Because when you start out, your income is like this. So, you know, I got many little side channels of income. Like I just started teaching at Camden County College. I teach the culinary arts there, and, you know, things like that, you know, which is a great little gig. But you know, those are the things that keep me up, you know, like keeping this afloat. You know, that's why I'm out there. I work 7 days a week. You know, I network 2 to 3 times a week. I'm out there meeting people. I feel I have to keep the ball rolling. You know, I got back from 2.5 weeks vacation in Europe, you know, last week, and I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. Now I got to work even harder. So those are the kind of things that keep me up at night and, you know, make me think about things. Plus, everybody wants to sell you something, you know, when you're a business owner. So you have X amount of resources. Who do I go to is the best one to put this? Because you have 25 people trying to sell you something. So, yeah.
All right. This is going to be a 2-part question. I'm going to start with the first part, and then I'll get the second part after you answer the first part. In your position you're in now, you know, Angela, 5 years, Mark, 5 years, Dan, you're new. What is something that you have learned that has been really valuable? Something you learned in your new position. What is something that you sat there and said, I learned this and this really makes me a better person or better worker? We'll start with you, Angela.
Mine's accounting related. So when I came in, I thought, well, everybody was telling me, you know, I have a guy and I've been with him forever and he knows where all the bodies are buried. So I make the Italian joke, I've got a shovel in my trunk. I can learn where the bodies are too. So, but what I really learned was the number was as good as the guy putting it in the box. And I didn't know that. So I always thought it's math, it's a rule and everybody's doing the same rules. And I found out very, very early. We had a client come in and we looked over a few returns and my boss instantly found that there was a huge credit that was missed that instantly would have been a huge influx of cash. Usually when I go see someone, I show up with food. I just took the returns and I ran back and I'm like, there's all this money in your returns that you can get back. And your accountant just didn't know. And they're like, well, we find that hard to believe. So I said, let's call him while I'm here. So they did call him. And it turns out he didn't know about our, you know, what these credits were. long story short, they got $186,000 back for the 3 years. But the problem was that credit came out in 2005, and that was 10 years. So we did some quick math. They lost $1 million just because the guy didn't know. And that couldn't be regrouped unless they were to sue. So I found out on that day, literally in a live scenario, that just because you have a guy doesn't mean, and I would imagine everyone here would say the same thing, there's a difference in the guy. So that was literally the day I found out. And after that became super excited, because just because you have a guy doesn't mean it's what you think it is. So let me take a look. What have you got to lose? Like zero, right? You got zero to lose by having someone else put a fresh set of eyes on something, and who knows what could come of it. So biggest lesson I learned, and it was super early, and I get super excited about it because when people think that they're safe and they think they know, it's always worth a second look.
How about you, Dan? What's something you've learned in this new position?
Wow, that I always figured, like when I was younger, oh, man, if I have a business, I'm going to be the best. I'm never going to say no, this, that, and the other. Sometimes you have to say no. Like if you get a client that you have to look at the numbers. Is this going to be a profitable, experience to do? I mean, we're in business to make a profit, let's face it, but we're also in business to serve our customers. So I've learned how to, I'm very good at talking to people. So I might say no, but I'll say it in a very, very professionally worded way. Like, we can't do that, but I tell you what, we can do this. And then you try to improve your relationship off of that, and, make a win-win. And it's worked for me so far. So yeah, not, it's okay to say no, but give your customers an alternative that works. It's create that win-win.
How about you, Mark? What's something that you've learned in this since you've been on your own?
I'd say like there are three things. First is I was always a decent networker. I think I'm now a very good networker. Learn the networking and effective networking, understanding, when to cut losses, when to pursue further, and ensuring, good follow-up. That's always been both a strength and a pet peeve of mine when people aren't following up the right way. But so I'd say networking is the first one. The other one is, second one is playing to my strengths, playing to my own strengths. I learned this quickly. When someone's, I had a prospect that said, I need help with pricing. That's one of my strengths. That's my area of expertise. But when I talked to them, I realized they don't need pricing. They need digital marketing. They need social media presence. That's not my strength. So I referred them out, and I realized that is what I should be doing, because I thought I made a mistake. But, if I'm not going to provide the value that they need for what they need, the best thing I can do is refer them to the person who can do that if I can't, right? So that's the other thing, making sure that I'm playing to my strengths, that I'm serving my clients in the best way possible with what I'm good at. And the last thing is just listening, the listening skills, and understanding that sometimes someone just needs to vent, and you just listen, and, there's no arguing, there's no anything. But I think I'm now, 2 ears, 1 mouth, twice the time should be listening and as talking. I'm now a big proponent of that. And, active listening is one of my, I think it's become a strength of mine. So those are the things I've learned.
I just thought of something, if that's a good thing for you, Angela. Let's say if you need to vent about accounting, call Venti. There you go. It's a little catchphrase there. So.
I had a sign on my door that said Venti Venti. So okay. I'm already there.
Okay. Now, I said it's a 2-part question. We asked you what you've learned in your new position. What is something you learned in the business world in your past that you brought to your new position? Something that you learned in the past, and then when you walked in, you said, I know what to do. We'll start with you, Mark, because you said what, we'll start with you. What is something you learned in your past life that you brought into now your new life?
Well, I would say 2 things there. One is just the functional expertise that I gained from my stints in the corporate world have come in very handy in what I'm doing now, because it's not only just the the coaching and strategizing and business therapy that I'm doing, but it's also, hey, I need help with this particular thing, operations, pricing, whatever it might be. And that's a strength. So it's not like, I don't have to say, well, I got to refer you out for that. I can help with that. So it's like an added bonus for clients. So that's one of the things I brought from my other world, if you will. And the second thing is just, I would say, again, having to do with listening. I am so interested. I was a mentor throughout my career in the corporate world. And that's one of the reasons I started doing this, because people would say, wow, yeah, you gave me this great advice on building this team, on achieving these stretch goals, on getting a promotion. You ought to do a second gig. And I said, no, I got enough going on. I don't need a second gig. But now time came. Now this is my first and only gig. And so I brought that mentorship capability and expertise to this area, which was a great help. Again, a lot of listening involved with that.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, that's an easy one. So again, coming from, corporate supply chain and logistics, my last several positions were on the analysis side. So I feel I have a very good grasp of the numbers. So I come in contact with many chefs who can cook me under the table. I mean, they're really, really good, but they don't necessarily have a good personality, and they certainly aren't good in the back end of the house. You have to know your numbers, and that's something that, I costed things out, like I did RFQs and, big projects, like chartering whole ships. I mean, imagine what that stuff costs and trying to put a charter for that. So that's helped me a lot, with helping me with the numbers and having a grasp of the the flow of money. So that was the biggest thing I think I brought over that's helped me a lot.
How about you, Angela? Because you went from banking to accounting, as you said. What did you bring that has helped you and it actually makes you a better employee?
All my relationships. I'm so proud of the connecting part. So it's funny listening to Mark talk. When I hear people talk, I hear opportunities for my network. I say Rolodex, but that's dating. But so every time somebody says, I need this or I'm looking for that, I usually say I got a guy. So and a lot of times my guy's a woman, but I know someone who can help alleviate that. And to Mark's point, you can't be an expert in everything. So these other things, but how valuable of a resource are you if you're able to make those connections and those referrals, and it keeps you top of mind for other people. If you're that person who's connecting all the dots and getting all the people, just like what you're doing right now with having these podcasts and getting people all in one spot and sharing their stories, that's a valuable resource. When I was talking to you at Jersey Man and talking to Dan and meeting all these different people, they go into a different pocket so that when somebody says, I'm having an event, I'm struggling in my business, I need more exposure, you would be the people who came to mind. And that's something I try to bring everywhere I go, into every conversation. I belong to a million groups. And that's something where I sit there, I believe the thing that I bring with me is my Rolodex. Everywhere I go, I'm walking in with hundreds of people behind me. And that, I think, is my secret power.
Okay. We were going to talk about networking because, as I said, Angela, I met you at a Jersey Man event, but we were connected on LinkedIn. I met Dan at an event at PJ Wheelhands, and he bought me a beer. And anyone who buys me a beer, I'll talk to, because I'm a cheap ass. So, I love it. I say if it's free, it's for me. Okay. I'm not ever, anyone listening, if you ever see me and you want to buy me a beer, even if you don't know me, just come up and buy me a beer and I'll talk to you.
I'm still waiting for you to buy me a beer.
That's never gonna happen. So you're on my show. That's enough. Okay. Anyway, what makes you a good networker? I think we all touch on it, but when you look inside, we can say listening, we can say stuff like that. But when you break it down, because we run into crappy networkers, there are some really bad networkers out there. I was at an event and people just pushing me their card, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't, just give me your card, be nice. But well, Angela, we'll start with you because you have a big network and you want to help people. But when push comes to shove, what do you say that makes you an excellent networker?
So I when I first started, it was a challenge. I figured if somebody wanted to talk to me, they would. So I could go a whole night and not meet anyone because I figured no one wanted to meet. So that can make networking very difficult. So I was trying to find a way around it. And somebody was like, just stand near the bar. Well, you meet people who drink near the bar. So that's not always the great, a couple hours in, that's not where you want to be necessarily. So I was like, somebody's like, carry a book under your arm and people will talk to you about the book. I'm not going to, I lie. I tried it. And you carry a book a whole night and that's not fun either. So I had to find a way to overcome walking into a room with 300 people and not feeling like I'd rather be anywhere else in the world but doing that. So somebody walked up to me and they said something and I'm like, oh my God, I can help you with that. So I came home and I said to my kids right away, I found this person. I'm so excited I could help them. And the next time I went out, I said, I'm going to walk in. I only need to find the one person I'm supposed to help. That's it. I might meet 20 people along the way. So I would meet people and I would meet and they would talk and then somebody would say something. And I'm like, oh my God, there you are. And I would make sure I did whatever it was that was going to help that person. And it became a game of who will it be that and sometimes I'd find them. I put my purse down and the turn around and there they were. Other times I'd get to all the way to the end of the night. And I thought, wow, this is terrible. I spent the whole night and didn't find them. And they're in front of me in the coat line and they turn around and they say something. And I'm like, there you are in the nick of time. And that became the way I played networking. And all I had to do, I might meet, like I said, 20 people, but I only needed the one that I was supposed to help and do something for. And that's how I became and that's how I built my network. So what if people know about me is if you ask me something and you need someone, and I mean from an ice cream truck to a Santa Claus to a real estate attorney, it doesn't matter what you've come up with. I can ask my network. Somebody needed an interpreter, Chinese interpreter, lawyer, all in the same thing. And I put it out to my network and I got one 5 seconds later. And that's, I think, the best thing that you could ever hope for in a networking career.
How about you, Dan? What makes you a good networker?
Wow. Well, I was not a good networker, and I want to thank you. Since we become friends, we always talk about networking, and Joe Oweiler from Tab. And I remember we were having a discussion, and in the beginning of my networking career, my goal was if there was 250 people in the room, was to get out 250 cards or it was a failure. If I didn't say hello to everybody and get a card, it was the night was a wash. And then it evolved to from talking to you, I know you're a real big networker and you have great philosophies that I've taken to heart. But I was out with Joe and he said, your object should be that you're in that room, seek out like 5 or 6 people and have like really deep, meaningful connections with them. And now that's what I do. So like even last night at your event, I spent a lot of time, talking to Carrie Nelson. She's a photographer and I know her from many other events, but we were starting to talk about something like a business relationship that we could do. And it turned out to be like a really, great connection last night, even though I knew her. So things like that, I just love I'll go right to somebody in the room I don't know, and I'll just go right over to him. Hey, I'm Dan, what do you do? And, a lot of times it's a great conversation. Oh yeah, I do social media marketing. I'm like, really? We got to talk because that's something that's near and dear to me. And, that's what I've evolved with now, really picking, good key discussions, meeting good key people and growing my network.
How about you, Mark? What makes you a good networker? Because I know you're out there. You know a lot of people.
I think it's a genuine curiosity to learn about others. I've had conversations at networking events where, or on Zoom calls where it never gets around to me. You never end up talking about me, and that's fine. I'm good with that. I ask a lot of questions. I'm just naturally, asking questions that no one's ever asked these folks before. sort of like before we did the show here, that question I asked you. And then it gets them thinking, and then the usual response back is, wow, you really got me thinking about my business like I've never thought about it before. And sometimes I'll offer advice, but not as a prescriptive way of doing it, like you should do this, but have you considered this or that? Yes, no, oh, yeah, maybe. Well, tell me more about how would I go about doing that? And that's how the conversation gets going. And so that's, I think, my what did you call it, Angela? Your super strength, your secret strength is just the curiosity and feeling good about, after I'm done the conversation, I've given somebody usually a good idea about their business that can be implemented with very low cost, very low effort. And whether that results in anything is, it doesn't matter, because I feel good that, that I was able to help somebody.
Okay. Here's the point of the show where, I have to watch myself, because I notice whenever I bring this up, my Fitbit, I go to peak level of heart rate, because it's something it's where I bitch about. And I love to bitch about LinkedIn. There's always a segment I bitch about LinkedIn because certain things piss me off about LinkedIn. I can't handle it. And the latest one is not the overuse of hashtags, because hashtags is great. I'll put marketing podcasts, but the bullshit hashtags, okay? When people say, and if any of you say this, I apologize, but it irritates me. When you hashtag let's go, it's like, you know what? The kids are saying LFG, which you can say with the app is, they always put let's go. I think it's the stupidest hashtag because it makes no sense. Or when they put blessed. Are you like, you have to put that in a hashtag? Or, love my job. Of course you love your job because you're posting about it. There's so many bullshit hashtags and sayings on LinkedIn that I go in and you look at it and you go, this person is full of shit. You see it when people go, they're working for the like. We want the like. And as you all know, likes don't equal business. Okay. Likes, that doesn't come out, just because you get a lot of likes on LinkedIn, it doesn't mean anything. So my thing that bothers me this week is hashtags. Crappy hashtags. Let's go. That bothers me as much as the word John, which isn't a word, except now words with friends, except John. So this is where my heartbeat goes up. My heart rate goes up because I vent and I go, my wife says, you shouldn't vent so much. And I go, well, I'll go to Venti and I won't vent. But that's what pisses me off about LinkedIn. What pisses you off about LinkedIn? And don't hold back, because people need to know, because when you see it, you go, oh my God. We'll start with you, Dan, because I know we have talked about the likes and you were like, oh, why I got the likes. I said, don't worry about the likes. It doesn't mean anything. People like you. But what pisses you off about LinkedIn?
I was just saying this to my daughter the other day. These bots, I keep getting these friendships all the time. It's like Amy Chow from Shanghai wants to get, like, did Amy Chow really look me up? Or like, where are these bots coming from? I hate it. It's mostly on LinkedIn out of the other platforms I'm on. But every week, every other day, I get requests from these bots and I can't stand it. I don't know how to get rid of it.
How about you, Angela? I know you.
I
have
love
something to say about
LinkedIn.
this.
I loved LinkedIn. I was like, oh my God, where's he going with this? Because I love LinkedIn. But if I had one, I don't hashtag, so I am not in the hashtag cool. When they were trying to explain it to me, I was like, listen, I just figured out how to get the @ symbol and somebody's name on there. So I'm going to leave the hashtagging to the marketing department. We have tried everything to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I have now figured out that I have no idea what works and what doesn't work, because we post all these informational posts about taxes and we get two views. We post a fight over Jimmy's and sprinkles and we have more viewer interaction. Are you team Jimmy or team sprinkles? We just did the coffees, Wawa, Starbucks, and Dunkin' Donuts. The most viewed video of the year. All of the stuff that we put out about employee retention credits, all these different things that we think we got it this time, cost segregation study, that's going to bring it home. Nope. It's what coffee did you vote for? So, and I wasn't there on Wawa 1, and it was only because I wasn't there, or Dunkin' would have been I run on Duncan, but that's what, so LinkedIn, it's a mystery to me what will make people view things. But it's the people who connect with me, and I take a chance and I look to see who they're connected to. 5 seconds after I hit accept, they slam me with let's set up a thing so I can sell you. And that is never how it's going to work for me. So now I get very much like Dan said, I connect with someone thinking that, let me see what the person's about, and 2 seconds later in my inbox is, I'd love to set up a Zoom call so I can tell you all about nah, I'm good. So I unconnect 5 seconds later. So it's a very quick way for me to decide whether you're staying in my network or not staying in my own network. But I do love LinkedIn.
Is it Jimmy or Sprinkles for you?
Oh, they're Jimmy's.
Okay, good. All right, good. I want to make sure. Okay.
How about soda or pop? Is it soda or
no,
pop?
we're not even going into that discussion.
Right.
No, it's soda. We're from the East Coast, and it's Taylor pork roll. Okay, Mark, what pisses you off about LinkedIn? Because hopefully I'm not the only curmudgeon in the room here. Okay, that's what I feel like, because no one else gets.
First of all, I want to know how you really feel about this, because I don't think you're really, letting loose with how you really feel. Well, I would say, no offense to your company, Angela, but like those kinds of posts, the Jimmy's versus, and especially when it's repeated by the same person or the same company over and over and over again. I've got over 1,500, contacts. I know all of them in LinkedIn, and I know more than just 20 are posting, but I only see the same 20 all the time. I don't know what's going on with the algorithm. I'd love to see posts from other people, but I only see what they allow me to see. So I end up seeing the Jimmy's versus the Sprinkles, and oh, isn't this dog really cute? Cat video, or people doing selfies with people at networking events that. Okay, so what? I don't know. That's kind of like I'm not. I like LinkedIn too, like you do, Angela. But if I'm forced to say what I don't like, it's that. I would probably also add the humble brags that go on, and the fake virtue signaling about various things that go on. And but I mean, some of that stuff's for Facebook, for Instagram. I mean, LinkedIn. I really hope. I just want to get the important business stuff. So
we're going to keep on LinkedIn real quick. And this is something, and I always like to hear what people say about this. And there's no right or wrong answer. In my eyes, there is, but I'm not going to say that. Politics and religion. Mark, is there a place for politics and religion on LinkedIn? Mark, tell me, because I don't think there is. But what do you think?
Well, so let me, the answer is no. However, I do know someone who actually used that as a strategy to get business. Let me explain. This person is a very extreme. I won't say what direction, but very extreme. And he would post stuff like that all the time. And I would ask him, why are you doing this? Like, you're pissing off at least half of the people on there. He says, yes, you're right, Mark, but the other half are really going to like me. And you know what? It's, fish in the sea. I'm narrowing my market, because these are the people that want to do business with me. I said, well, if you don't mind pissing a bunch of people off to get a lot of business, I can't, that's a strategy, right?
How about you, Angela? What's your take on religion and politics on LinkedIn?
Nope, never. Don't do it. I mean, I get that somebody would want to fly that banner, I guess, but I won't do it in person. I won't do it in conversation. I won't do it on social media. I just don't think that and more than ever, the world is not, you can't post something and it turn into a dialogue and a discussion. It is literally, it's just an attack. There's no more listening anymore that I have seen. Even in person, I'm very careful because the discussions that used to happen, I don't see anymore. You can just alienate someone immediately by having an opinion and sharing it. So in the right company, I would say, but never on a social media platform.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, two subjects I will not discuss: religion and politics. So years ago, I was on social media, and then I swore it off for about 5, 6 years until I started my business and had to get on there again. And I get sucked into that rabbit hole. But now I'll be on there and I'll see something and it's like, no, I'm not going to comment on that, because I don't care if you're a left-wing extremist or a right-wing extremist. I want to feed you. So have your opinion. Fine. We'll do business together. I'll move on. I don't need to discuss that because you're not going to change anybody's opinion by posting, your view, who to vote for. It doesn't work that way.
I'm the same way. I'm like, I don't care if you're what religion you are, what, all your political view is, but if you don't like goldfish crackers, I don't trust you. So I think if you meet someone who doesn't like goldfish crackers, there's something wrong with them. Here's a question that I started a few weeks ago, and I've really gotten a lot out of it because I don't read business books. I read different kinds of entertainment books. I don't care about business books, but I found a lot of insight that people have given, said very good books they've read that helped them, like The Go-Giver and stuff like that. What's a book that you've either read recently or in the past that you really gained something from that? A business book, like I read, On the Road, Jack Kerouac, and it was very overrated, but everyone raved about it. But what's a book that you read or are reading that has helped you in business? We'll start with you, Angela.
Oh, don't start with me. I have so many that I'll need a second. So you go to somebody else and I'll try to pick the one that made the most to me because I'm sitting next to a bookshelf of all those books that you don't read. If you ever want to borrow one, let me know because I literally have a cabinet full of them. So I just have to think of which one it means the most.
We'll come back.
Angela, you should go over and look at your book. You should take a break and read your books and then.
Mark, what's a book? What's one?
So two books. One I'm in the middle of, one I just finished. The last two I read, and these are not recent books necessarily. I don't go with the trendy, has to be the most recent, but they're classics in my view. The first one I read was called Never Split the Difference. It's a negotiating book by a guy named Chris Voss. He used to be a hostage negotiator. This is like for advanced negotiations. Like this isn't your beginner stuff. And for those of us that are good at this, that like doing this, that like learning more about it and constantly learning, I would highly recommend this book. All sorts of different techniques that you don't even think about that are sometimes subliminal. Very good book, tour de force about negotiations. The second one that I'm reading now. And by the way, I have a hack for reading the books. It doesn't waste my time. I usually listen to them like when I'm driving or waiting in the doctor's office or for my car to get repaired. So that's my hack. So I'm not like, I'm just accomplishing something when I'm a captive audience and getting these books, absorbed into my brain. The second one is Thinking Fast and Slow by a Nobel Prize winning psychologist named Daniel Kahneman about how we make decisions. And how he kind of flips on its head the decision-making theories that had been in place up until recently, and why we make very irrational decisions frequently, and the whole reasoning behind that. Fascinating book, and I recommend that one too.
How about you, Dan?
Wow, I just brought two books with me on my trip to read on the airplane and in the room. So one of them was Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, which I thought was a real good one. So it talked about how to structure your business like Rockefeller did. Now I'm like, a drop of water in an ocean, and he was who he was, but I think and dream big, and I aspire. So there's things I can learn there, lessons on, how to scale my business. And then I get like, I'm all about like finance books. Like I'm always like ways to make money. And I got this book on universal index life funds. Okay. Don't judge, boring, but Joe Gangemi, he was at the network event, and we had Natalie from New York Life, and we were talking about life insurance. And I'm like, that's one of the pillars of your financial stability. You have to have life insurance. And I'm like, all right, I want to open up this, UIL, it's called. And that's an investment vehicle that, in 10 years time, I could take loans out of that interest free to to put into my business. And I mean, that's the way I think, so that's the kind of stuff I like to read.
Angela, we're back.
Okay, I'm back. I did. So I'm going to go with author because every single book he's ever written is amazing, in my opinion. Malcolm Gladwell. And if I had to pick The Turning Point, Outliers, Blink, no matter. So, and I think even if you're not a business book or you don't like that kind of book, you would love. These are so interesting and they're so makes you look at things differently and explains things in a way that you start to look at, especially Tipping Point, how a city can change, all those things. But every book he's ever written to me, I think I've probably recommended and given away because I thought they were just super impactful for not only business, but life.
I did read The Tipping Point. That's one I actually did read. And I love the story about
book, right?
The hush puppies in Baltimore. It was very, the shoes, it was very interesting. Okay. I always end the show with this. It's a final question. You meet someone who's just getting out in the business world. Okay. Someone young. They could be getting out of trade school. They could be getting out of, college. They can get out of high school and they want to, they're from high school, they're going on the path. What's some advice? And I always say, because my mom said this, do you tell someone who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? What if someone comes up to you and says, what do I do? Where should I go? What advice should you give me to be successful? What is some advice? And we'll start with you, Mark. What is an advice that you'd give to someone? And I know you have kids, so maybe your kids ask you the same thing, but what is advice you would give to someone who's new, who's starting into this wonderful, wonderful, crazy venture we do called business?
Don't get into business. No, just it would highly depend on what they're doing. Are they doing something for themselves in the corporate world or not? But just to generalize, I would say, first of all, don't take yourself too seriously. I remember when I was getting in the business, I took myself so seriously. I thought I knew everything. And in the retrospect, I knew nothing. And it was, I could see how people were probably laughing at me behind my back because I thought I was so smart and I was very earnest about everything. So don't take yourself too seriously. Realize that you don't have all the answers, that people with more experience know a lot more than you, and understand that. Along those lines, seek out mentorship, if possible, in your organization, or even if you're running your own company. Very important. People that have been there, done that, can see your blind spots, can help you avoid issues that they may have experienced through their advice. So I'd say mentorship. I also say seek out responsibility. If you're especially in a corporate environment, volunteering for projects that you don't need to do, but that it raises your profile. If you want to get promoted, if that's your goal, to get promoted and keep going up the ladder, do things beyond what your job description is. That's the way you get noticed and promoted, and you get a reputation of, hey, you need something done, give it to this person. That's what I would say.
Okay, how about you, Angela?
So there's a few things probably, but I think speaking it is probably one of the biggest ways. So I always say, if we're looking for a client, a yellow car, I call it a yellow car. So, because every night you're going to buy a car and you never saw the car before. And now all of a sudden you look around and all of a sudden that car is everywhere. And I think you speak things into existence. So I think telling your network and telling everyone you're around what you're after will help get you there. The mentorship, the surrounding yourself with the 5 people who are going to get you there. I think that is a huge part of, all of a sudden these people have such a passion. And the last thing I would want to do is not, if you have that, my hat's off to anyone who owns a business, because if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's not easy. It's very hard. And there's a very big difference between those people and the people who just go to work and know a paycheck is coming every Friday and your benefits are covered, versus the guy who gets up and he's got to kill and hunt his own every single day. That's a different mentality. So I think a lot of love and passion has to be there for that. And then exactly what Mark is saying, find that person that's 10 years ahead of you and follow them. Get, say, I would love you to mentor me. That person, I promise you, will want to save you the headaches and the downfalls they've already been through. But I think it's amazing when a young person, I keep saying we need to have an entrepreneur think tank to keep those dreams alive and not get sucked up into the, no, you can't. And are you crazy? Just get a job and be like everybody else. I think what I would say is to say it into existence, because somewhere in your network, you're going to find that person and you're going to find the yellow car, and you got to keep chasing it.
Okay. How about you, Dan?
Wow, I'm glad I got to follow Angela, because I just totally like you nailed it, Angela. Beautifully said. So I'm fortunate to be in that position right now. Like I said, I just took this teaching job at Camden County College, and these students I'm teaching, they're like 18 years old. They're right out of school, right? And my thing is to teach them, like, be entrepreneurial, right? Like, you don't have to go into a restaurant and slave. Like, everybody watches those cooking shows, and I mean, it's TV, but a lot of it's true. Like, these guys think you have to work like every holiday and weekend and overtime and have no life to pay your dues. Why do you have to be that way? Like, look, I don't own a restaurant, I don't own a food truck. I'm a personal chef. This is another avenue you can take, but you're a business owner. So I would look through these kids through the prism of my life and say, you know what, you're 18, you're out of college, you're 22, 23 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. Why not stick out your shingle? Why not find passion in something you can do? Look at me, I did it so much later in life. If you did it now, you would be a multi-gazillionaire by the time you're my age. So to Angela's point, there is no security in that paycheck, every other week that you get. I was laid off 5 times in my professional career. That wasn't safe. So, follow your passion. Like all the panelists said, get a mentor, and anybody that ever came to me from help, I would help anybody gladly, just to, like, these are the mistakes I made. Don't make these. That's what it's about, helping other people. So,
well, that was great. You guys were great today. Thanks for coming on the show. Tell people how they can get in touch with you. And we'll have bots go to Dan's LinkedIn, and we'll have people put puppies and kittens on Mark's wall on LinkedIn. But how can people get in touch with you, Mark?
Website is onthemarkadvisors.com. Advisors with an O. And my email is M as in Mark, Style, STYLE, at onthemarkadvisors.com. You could also find me on LinkedIn. As long as you're not, someone from a foreign country that is, has no connections, I'm your first one. That's cool too.
How about you, Angela?
LinkedIn. I was going to make the joke right away, but you took it away from me. I was going to say, well, you could just go to LinkedIn and find me. I have my name right up on the screen there. So AllieSilverstein.com is our website. We're all on there, and we have all of our specialties and things that we are experts in on our website. So it's a great place to check us out.
And you, Dan?
Great. You can find us on the web at modernclassicalchefs.com, by email at dan@modernclassicalchefs.com, by phone 856-332-5769. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So very easy to get hold of us.
And people, you can email me, thecooptank@yahoo.com. You might want to advertise on the show. As you see, I get some pretty heavy-hitting business people, and the people who watch this show and listen to the show are business people. So what a better way to get your brand out there than getting out to the people that can sit there, like Angela said, can be your people. Perfect. So hit me up at the Coop Tank at yahoo.com. Go check out past episodes, the Coop Tank on YouTube. Like it, subscribe. And don't forget, I want to thank Joe Gangemi, the best producer in town. The reason I come here is because he does a great job. Reach out to him at hello@SuiteRecording, SUITE recording.com. Okay, people, go Eagles. Have a great weekend. I'm Steve Cooper, and I'll talk to you next week.